Hi, this is the first installment of Manifested Mercy videos. There's a couple reasons for this. One is these will be used as videos on the Manifested Mercy page that will be available for people to watch that can give some helpful hinters as far as things that they can do to help preventing relapses. In other words, people that are dealing with their addictions in rehab, in recovery. Secondly, there'll be things that will be helpful for those that are dealing with incarceration, very specifically those upon removal from incarceration. There will be some videos that will help people that are preparing for potential time down, as well as some videos that will help families that are dealing with family members that are incarcerated. But today's will be the first video I'm doing, and I'm doing it based upon the 6 points of Manifested Mercy. And please understand that I've done some of these before, but these are kind of instructional videos that, when expanded, will be able to be done in hour-long seminars. One of the things that Manifested Mercy plans on doing is a lot of consulting and seminars, conventions, where we are providing this information to help people that are dealing with these areas, as well as those people that have been victimized, because there will be some videos done to help people work through overcoming how they've been victimized. So real quick, the 6 points of Manifested Mercy. The first point is safe housing. The second point that we emphasize and try to help people with is gainful employment. The third one is reconnecting with family and community and friends. The fourth point is a strong faith base. The fifth point is education and programming. And the sixth point, which is kind of a wild card, is accountability. If you, as a person that's dealing with recovery, or a person that's being removed from incarcerations, in some cases they go together, are able to succeed in, we kind of look at the numbers and say anywhere between 3 to 5 of these 6 points, your numbers drop rapidly for the likelihood of a relapse or returning to prison. And I've written a paper on this, and obviously have personal experience in these areas. These videos will be posted in 2 areas. They're going to be posted both to Facebook, and there will be a YouTube Manifested Mercy channel where these will be available for people that want to use these. So, and these can be expanded. This is probably at most going to be about maybe a 10-minute video. And each one after this, I won't go through all these explanations, but this first one, it's important that I do. So this first one today is going to be about safe housing. The reason I want to talk about this is because a struggle for anybody with any type of background or past is that when you fill out an application for housing, specifically rental, but sometimes also in purchasing a place, a lot of times the question is asked, do you have a background or past? Many landlords, who are uneducated, by the way, and I'm not trying to put them down, but uneducated landlords don't recognize that there is some safety in hiring people that are in the recovery stage, and are not hiring, allowing people to live, tenants, to live in their property, because they are struggling and fighting to not go back. Most people, when they get out of prison especially, and those that have gone through the detox stage and are going through rehab or sober living, don't want to go back. Most people don't, and they will state that, but they don't necessarily say, what am I going to do that? And that's where we step in. We try to provide ways as Manifested Mercy to help people actually succeed in that attempt, because everything's stacked against them. Society doesn't want to hire them or let them live in their areas. So we're going to talk about that today. So that being said, we're going to talk about safe housing today. So the first question when you're looking for housing is to ask, was this where I used or offended? The prison systems, when they release somebody from prison, unless you have a specific sex-oriented crime, in most cases is not going to say you can't live there. They're going to say, do you have a place to live? And your response is going to be yes. And you're going to give them the address. And they're going to call and speak to whomever lives there and say, is this person welcome to live there? And if that person says, absolutely, we're looking forward to them coming home, which, by the way, is a positive if you have family, community to come back to. The problem is, if you were there before, when you committed your crimes or were actively using alcohol, drugs, that is not necessarily safe housing. So you have to ask yourself the question, was this where you used or offended? Because if the answer to that is yes, I would argue that that right away is a red flag, and you may want to rethink that. Now, there are other questions that fall into that, because maybe it is a safe place. Maybe the people around you weren't aware you were doing these things, and now they're aware, and so things will have changed in the living environment. But I would recommend that you dig deeper into that. I would recommend that you are able to start asking them questions if they will help keep you from doing certain things, hold you accountable in that regards. So if you answer yes, that's where you used or offended, I would argue that that isn't necessarily safe housing. There's the first thing. The second thing is, can you afford to live there? When you get out, you probably don't have a job waiting for you. Some people do. And it's probably not a high-paying job if you do. Again, there are exceptions to every rule. If you can't afford to live there, it's not safe housing, because every month you're going to find yourself scratching to find more money, whether it be through friends or getting a loan or, unfortunately, then going back. If you were somebody that dealt or that were in robbery or burglary and you don't have enough money to get by, whether it be to pay the bills or food or basic transportation, gas money, etc., you're likely to do things that you wouldn't do on a legal perspective of life. The people who don't break the rules, you're going to be willing to break the rules because you don't want to go back, so you need to keep a place to live because parole, probation requires it, or whatever the case may be. That's not safe housing. If you can't afford to live there, that is unsafe housing, because you may not stay there long, and then you're going to end up going around crashing from house to house, to bed, which again is very unsafe. So, second question, can you afford to live there? Next question, third question. Do you have roommates whom did or will enable you? What's enabling? If I am a user, if I am doing drugs, or I have an issue with alcohol, will they make sure that those aren't allowed in the house? Will they make sure that I'm watching for patterns of actions, speech, sleeping patterns, whom I hang out with, that tell me that I'm probably back to using or drinking, or all of a sudden, am I accumulating things that I don't have the money for, which says I might be getting back to old ways of stealing if you have a burglary theft issue? Or am I hanging out in places that I shouldn't be? If those are the cases and the person you're living with is letting you do that without trying to hold you accountable, without calling you out, without lying or beating around the bush, you don't have to. If you think someone's using, call them out on using. That's not enabling. That's holding them accountable. If you have people who won't do that and you're living with them, that's an unsafe environment. You cannot live with those people, because those people are only going to add to the chances that you are going to fail. Next question. How close is where you're living to, and I wrote 4 things down, but this could be expanded. And this would be where in a conference we might ask, what are things that are problem areas? But the 4 I wrote down: gang activity. If you were involved in a gang, you cannot afford to live close to where that gang does their activity again. If you're trying to get out of the gang lifestyle, you've got to get out of that area. And that might even moving across the country somewhere. So first of all, gang activity. Second one, drug corridors. If you were an active user, if your crime involved drugs, whether it be use, sales, manufacturing, or if you are the person who didn't get criminal charges but did have to go through detox and rehab and sober living, and where you're going to live is right within a drug corridor that very specifically is related to your drug of choice, it's an unsafe area to live. You need to rethink that living place. That's not safe no matter how strong-willed you are, no matter how the people around you may hold you accountable and help you through that. You're going to see that around you every day, what you're used to. It's an equal nature and it's easy to go back. Third one, if you have a problem with alcohol, you don't need to live in a home that's real close to the mini marts, the ones that are more alcohol than anything else. Maybe it's a gas store or a milk store. A lot of them have a lot of alcohol available. That's not a safe place to live close to there. And finally, the fourth one would be what we call trigger spots. So for a sex offender, if your crime took place because you preyed on somebody in a church environment, you probably don't need to live near that church or a church that has similar programming. If you were somebody that your crime took place in a park, you definitely don't need to live close to a park. Mind you, there are rules that don't allow that anyways. And though and I'll talk about this at a later time, registries don't do any good, and living restrictions don't do any good. It's been proven to prevent people from recommitting crimes. I still recommend you don't live near somewhere that would be a trigger spot. It's just not healthy. It's more likely that you may fall back to an old way. Get away from those areas. So those are the 4 I listed. There are certainly more, and this would be expanded in a conference setting. The next question is, and actually it's a point, is who safe housing is most important for. There are some, so let's go to the long end of the spectrum. Somebody that's in jail for murder, or the short end of the spectrum, somebody that is in jail for, let's say, identity theft. Where you live may not be as important, because those are not necessarily crimes that are related to where you live. However, safe housing is most important for sex offenders. Sex offenders already have a list that's way too long that tells them what they can and can't do. Again, those lists do not prevent sex offenses, and the public nature of that does not help at all when it comes to preventing. So, frankly, it is an overdue fear of people that has caused these public lists, and they are not effective at all. But sex offenders need safe housing because they already have the Scarlet A, and they need a place where they have people around them that will trust them, support them, and give them that second chance. So that's one. Gang-related criminal activity. If you did prison time for gang-related criminal activity, you need safe housing. Cannot afford to live around them. Domestic violence. You cannot go back home to where you committed your crimes if you are in prison for domestic violence. Absolutely not. Burglary and theft. You've got to have housing away from an area that you had already staked out and that you knew. If you are living near where you already knew the area well enough, knew people's patterns, habits, which houses had more money, which houses didn't have security, you got to get out of that area. You can't live in that area because it'll be too easy if all of a sudden you're short on cash to pay for basic bills and food. It's too easy for you to say, well, I can easily get one time some money. Don't do it. And drug alcohol use. Obviously, you cannot afford to live near places where you can get it. Live with people that drink. Live with people that use. Live near where your normal buyer seller was. Got to get out of that area. Those are the 5, probably of all different types of crimes and drug-related rehab, recovery, alcohol use. Those are the 5 that are most important that have to have safe housing. And finally, the last thing I wanted to bring up in this video is about transportation issues. If you are living somewhere where you have a hard time getting around, then you're going to have a hard time getting to jobs, hard time getting to meetings, hard time getting to probation, parole, hard time getting to a safe place if you find yourself in a bad trigger scenario. You need to think that. Is there public access to a bus? Are you close enough distance that you don't need a lot of gas if you do have a vehicle? If you have a vehicle that breaks down frequently, are you close enough to get the parts and or the help needed to fix that vehicle? People don't think about that. Transportation-wise, you need to be close to a safe place. There's a lot more that can be talked about in regards to safe housing, but I wanted to prepare this today. I wanted to share this. I want you to know that you are loved and you are more than the choices you made. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get a hold of us on our Facebook page, Manifested Mercy. We do have our website at manifestedmercy.com. However, I would recommend instant messaging us or leaving a message on the Facebook page. It's the best place at this time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get a hold of us. We are here to help you out. We are located in the Alton, Illinois area. Again, you're loved, and you're more than the choices you've made. Have a great day.